Okay, is everybody in?
Hi, Teresa. Good morning.
Good morning. Who was that?
That's Mike Bricker.
That
Hi,
was my.
Mike.
That was my.
How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you guys?
I'm doing great.
Good.
We went from Arctic weather here to just absolutely beautiful 70 degrees. So
Perfect.
very happy about that. Yes.
That's great.
Yep. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. This is the National American Indian and Alaska Native Mental Health TTC program. This is the K-12 school supplement. My name is Teresa Brewington. I have a master's in business administration and a master's in educational leadership. I am from the Kahari and Lumbee Nations, and I am the program manager for this project. Also, we have Julia Bullitt. She is a student graduate at the University of Iowa. This is her last semester. She will be graduating. And then we have Kate Proust. She is also a student here at the University of Iowa. So they've been a great help to me. So they're going to kind of help us navigate during today's session. How do I go to, okay. Again, my name is Teresa Brewington. Like I said, I'm from the Kahari and Lumbee Nations in North Carolina. However, I now live here on the Meskwaki settlement. I've been here for about 9+ years already. I have dedicated my life working with Native Nations, from being a school guidance counselor to a director of mental health facilities, to being an elementary school principal for Native children. We are a very large network. However, the Alaskan Indian and Alaskan Native mental health network is all throughout the US and Alaska. This is the disclosures from SAMHSA. The National American Indian and Alaska Native Mental Health TTC Transfer Center is supported by a grant. The content of this webinar is the creation of the presenter, and the opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect the views or policies of SAMHSA, AHS, or the American Indian and Alaska Native MHTTC. At the end of the day of today's session, you will get a survey. It's called the Gipper survey. We invite you to please just take a few minutes to fill these out. And the reason is it just kind of helps us on how well we're doing. And it also gives you the opportunity to have input on upcoming webinars. So today's topic is cultural reflections, power of place, social emotional support, and next generational learning. Our presenter today is David Sullivan, and I'm going to let him introduce himself.
Good afternoon. My name is David Sullivan, and I am currently serving in the Anadarko Public Schools. I've been in this role or in the school district for 20 years. This is my 20th year. I am a member of the Kiowa Nation, as well as I have affiliations with the Choctaw Nation. So very honored and humbled to be here and to join this group today, to be able to just present a little bit of my perspective and just a little of my experience that I've had in recent years here serving our students here in Southwest Oklahoma.
Thank you, David, for that. We're going to let David get started in just a few minutes. Just a few things that I wanted to announce. Number one, I wanted to see how everyone was doing today. So if you can just put in the chat box where you're from and how you're feeling today. And I'll just give you a few minutes to do that. Oh, someone here's from Tama. Hi. Good. Glad to see everybody's doing well, and welcome to today's session. I do have, if you'll look it up in the chat at the very top. Kate, did you put that in the chat already?
I was gonna put it in right now so it doesn't get lost.
We had a very good conversation yesterday. We had Larry come on yesterday, and excuse me, on our last session. We had some really good discussions, open discussions that were necessary discussions, and I wanted to kind of build on that. So we have a little survey for you. It's just a 3-question survey, and I invite you to answer that for us, please. In addition, we are no longer going to be speaking specifically about COVID. Like I said before, I'm kind of COVID out. There's a lot more that I want to discuss, and I think there's just a lot more things that we need to share ideas with each other with going forward. So it also asks if you have any ideas or anything that you want, any topics in mind that you want to have in these sessions, to please let us know. So it just takes just a few minutes. Like I said, it's 3 quick questions. So if you would just take a minute to do that, that would be awesome. While you're doing that, I have to say that we are recording today's session, so please be mindful of that. We will be putting this on our website and on our YouTube page. Do we have any other consultants or advisors on here today? Julie, if you could help me look. I do not see anybody on here today. All right, I'm also going to ask, and I ask this every time, if anybody would like to open us up with either a blessing, a song, a quote, some words of wisdom, just anything that you feel in your heart that you want to say today. I'm going to give you a few minutes to think about that, and I invite you to just open up your mic, raise your hand, however way you would like to do it, and speak up. I'm gonna start preparing to come to songs, and I can't sing, and drums, and I can't drum, so. Maybe it's time to learn.
I'll sing a
Kevin,
song.
thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Kevin Hale. I'm a social worker at United American Indian Involvement in Los Angeles, California. I'm a member of the Navajo Nation. My clan is Kichlichini. That's a Red House people. And I'm born for the Twatugoji. That's the saltwater people. My paternal grandfather and maternal grandfathers are Kiani and Totachini, and so those are my clans. And I'll just sing a song. I usually sing it. It has a phrase in. It's more of a powwow style song that we use in honoring and opening up celebrations, and we sing with my brothers at a drum, Southern style singing. And so the phrase is Hojona Shah, that means walk in beauty. It's a phrase that you hear at a lot of our ceremonies. It's like the basis of our spirituality in the Navajo Nation. And a lot of our coming out ceremonies. So I'll just real quick, I just want to thank everybody for being here today and giving me an opportunity to share a little bit with you. And God bless all of you. Creator's amazing. That even with all this, like Teresa said, she's COVID out, and I'm the same. I'm in my bedroom. I work here and I sleep here.
Yep.
Because the rest of the house is taken up by my other family members doing their work. And so I'm tired of this COVID thing too. And I just want to pray that we all remain healthy, and that we can return to work and talk with our clients face to face. like we used to, and rebuild that relationship we had. Even though this is good for now, it's better the way it was without the sickness. And I just want to thank all of you across this country, for always tuning in for all of these beautiful workshops and Zooms and trainings and presentations that we have here. All the people taking their time and their out of their day to attend. I met so many people already doing this, so that's a good thing about this, about all of this that's happening in our country today. So may you all walk in beauty. Hey-yo, hey, hey-yo, hey, ho, hey, hey-yo, hey, hey-yo, hey, ho, hey, hey-yo, hey, hey-yo, hey, ho, hey-yo, hey, hey-yo, hey, hey yo, hey, hey yo, hey, hey, was on a show, hey yo, hey yo, hey yo, hey, hey yo, hey, was on a show, hey, hey, oh, hey, hey, oh, hey, oh, hey, hey, oh, hey, hey, oh, hey, oh, hey, oh, hey, hey, oh, hey, hey, oh, hey, 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 was on a show, hey yo, hey yo, hey yo, hey, hey yo, hey, was on a show, hey yo, hey, hey. Thank you. May Creator bless your day. Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate that so much. Thank you. Bless you. Okay, we are ready to get started. David, I'm going to give it over to you. Pass the mic. And you've got your PowerPoint. You're going to share it on your own, correct? There you go.
Your camera and your microphone are muted, David, if you can't see those.
Yes, there you go. As I start out, I want to again say thank you to Teresa and everyone at the Native Center for Behavioral Health, and just for allowing me to have this time to just share with you just a little bit of my experiences. And I really am hoping that we can have a good discussion as well, not just to where it's something that I'm presenting. And I'll probably, as I'm sharing this and going over the actual over the slides, I'll keep my camera off for right now. There are times when that I've experienced in recent days of being on our Zoom sessions where for some reason, I don't know if it's bandwidth or if it's something going on here within our area, I start to have issues with the speed level and the communication. So I'll keep it on there for now, and then I'll just switch it back on. But one of the things as I go, I wanted to make sure that first off, before I go into a whole lot of the information that I'd like to share with you today. I just wanted to give you just a little bit more background about me and where I come from in terms of the why I chose to bring this information to you today. As I said earlier, I've been with the public school system here for 20 years as a staff member. Prior to that, I attended this school. And so I have a unique perspective that not very few people have that work for the district. There are quite a few here, but it's just different being able to go through the system. And then now I'm working in that structure. So that's where, in terms of my experiences, that's what I wanted to share with you. And so, but first I wanted to just give a little bit more background. For me, as I mentioned earlier, I'm a member of the Kiowa tribe here that's currently in Oklahoma. But prior to that, our tribe was, as you know, we were nomadic, and we traveled all over wherever we wanted to go up until, we were forced to be here in this area. But over the course of those years, we were able to still maintain and have a sense of resiliency. And so I want to focus on that in terms of how that reflects, how that connects to what we're going to talk about today. But I'm really humbled to be a part of, to now serve as an advisor and one of the consultants for the Mental Health Tech Transfer Network Center. It's really humbling, especially today, to be able to see everyone, to see where you're from. And I'm really pleased to see that there are several people here from even my area. And so I'm looking forward to even following up with you to get more information, or get your feedback on how you thought everything went with this session. But my experience with the district has been pretty interesting, and to say the least. But I've enjoyed having the experience for all these years. And so I'm going to go ahead and move into this. Hopefully it'll work. Okay, there we go. So let's go ahead and move into the objectives, and I'll go ahead and talk a little bit more, try to work in a little bit more about my experiences as I go. But one of the primary objectives, I looked at 3 of them. Provide meaningful networking opportunities. I really do hope to be able to connect with each one of you I know we don't have a whole lot of time in this period, this point of or this session, but as we continue to progress, I'd like to hear more from you, hear your thoughts on this information, and then just continue to see how we can network together. And then I also want to try to draw connections between the power of culture and what my perspective of what I've drawn towards upstream SEL supports, and how I look at place-based education, and how I believe that it has helped our students up to this point, and how I think it could really transform the experience of our students if we can move into the 3rd objective, to where we can see the power of student agency and next-gen learning. First, what I want to do, though, is, in a normal presentation, we're usually somewhere. If we're going to a conference, we're in the ancestral lands of someplace, and every one of us now, we're all in our home ancestral lands, or in a place where you've been moved or relocated. For me, as I mentioned earlier, as I talked to you, that the Kiowa people, this is not our ancestral lands. These are the ancestral lands of the Wichita people. So I want to acknowledge that that's where I'm coming from. That's where I'm speaking from. And I appreciate the Wichita people, and I appreciate all of our people and all of the ancestral lands that you are joining us from today. And I also appreciate this time to where I'm able to speak and just share, and also the contributions that not only my generation, my earlier people, my ancestors, the contributions that they gave to allow me to be here today, but for every one of you. I appreciate all of their contributions and the sacrifices that they gave so that we could be here and be blessed enough to join and discuss all of the issues that we're talking about today. You know, I hear everyone, and I heard Teresa and Kevin. I definitely understand your frustration of and just not necessarily wanting to continue talking about COVID. And so I'm definitely going to try and maybe take us from that to a certain degree, and we'll talk about some things, some positive things that we can look to and start to strive towards. And then just acknowledge the earlier generations, and then that connection to our students, and then the power of those connections and how those lead to their success and in their learning, leadership, and their life. So to me, I'll talk about this a little bit more, but this is just a real quick overview of what PBE is. I know there may be some of you that are very familiar with this. You may be able to give more details than I could, but then there are some that may not have ever heard of what place-based education is about. And so basically, within this process, the students are given a local and a global competence. And I really want to focus on that idea of competency. It's an idea, or it's a concept that it's not always really, it's not completely focused on within the structure of our current model of education. And in my mind, I feel that is a very big component. That's a very big piece in terms of why our students, especially our Native American students, have issues, and to where we have to, where we need the social and emotional learning supports as much as we do. And we need so many other supports for attendance and for behavior and all of those elements. So, but when you have this structure of the power of place, the place-based education model, where it's touched on a daily basis, it is my belief that it will definitely reduce a lot of the needs. It won't completely eliminate. We'll definitely still need to have those supports for social emotional learning. We'll definitely need to have all those supports, but I believe that when that structure where the students, where they spend the majority of their time in the general education classroom, when they are able to utilize those methods, they or have those elements within their daily educational system, they're able to understand and their needs are met on a greater basis. So as you can see, really it's focusing on learning is real and meaningful, organic and visceral. The priority is on engagement and authenticity, and really focusing on how to get the students connected to the world. A lot of our current educational system is designed and it's implemented in an abstract way, whereas this is gearing us more towards really connecting us with our community. So the goals, as you can see, impacting our communities and increase student and teacher engagement, boost academic outcomes. This is as I don't know if you noticed, but a lot of this is not my content. I utilize this content from several resources, but my perspective on this is that not only do we have these three goals, but I believe the other goal for us is to boost our boost our resiliency and lessen our need for social and emotional supports. And I'll talk more about that later. So when you have this in place and you get powerful personalized learning models in place, you're going to see highly functioning democracy of informed, engaged citizens. And I really focus on that concept of democracy because that's something that's a very tribal concept. That's not a Western European concept. That's not an American concept. That's a tribal, that's an indigenous concept that was originally here in this land. And so that's why without that focus, then we're not going to have the elements that our students need. When you look at this model, you see the PBE, place-based education, and what it brings. It gives the students voice and choice. It tailors the learning to their own interests, and it ensures that their mastery of high academic standards. It's not lowering it's not lowering the expectation. It's pushing the students towards a higher level of thinking and learning. A lot of our people our younger students, if you like history, I encourage you to go and study the early educational systems, the early school systems that some of our tribes operated prior to our current era of what we work with in terms of the educational model, and look at how the students functioned within those models. It was very different. Student agency is one of the biggest pieces that I feel we're missing in our current educational system. And without that, without the full realization of student agency, we'll always have the issues that we're talking about here in terms of risk factors and without that student agency, our students won't fully be able to address the adverse childhood experiences or overcome those experiences that they've had in their life. Let's see. I won't go into every one of these because I know if I continue, going into every detail, then we may not have enough time for a discussion, or at least to look at questions. I haven't checked the chat, so like I said before, I think I said this clear enough, but I may not have. But if any of you have a question, feel free to stop me at any time, or to look in, or to send it into the chat box. Teresa, if there's anything that you see that I need to stop and address, please be sure to let me know and just break in there.
Yes,
But,
we'll do that, David. Not a problem.
Okay, thank you. So before I go on, are there any questions? Does anyone have any thoughts or anything before we continue to just move on through the slides? Okay, I will.
Well, I'm going to
continue
go
on.
ahead and ask you then.
Yeah,
So are you guys using the PBE now in your area?
we are just emerging in terms of that. What you see a lot of times, at one point we were moving further into this in terms of, it was really more or less what you call a pilot project.
Mm-hmm.
We were working on that in a few of our grade levels, but as things happen, change takes place, leadership changes. You have to just kind of go with those changes. So as I was mentioning earlier to you earlier, that when we tried to put this in place, there is a little resistance, because in order to do this, you have to do a little bit more research in terms of local context, the standards that we have to utilize through the state Department of Education. They're not fully designed for that.
Well, that's what I
Yes.
was going to add. We have a curriculum that, the Common Core curriculum
Mhm.
that is required. One of our consultants has developed a curriculum with place-based education that aligns with the Common Core curriculum.
That's great. Unfortunately, Oklahoma doesn't utilize the Common Core curriculum. Our state developed the Oklahoma academic standards. Those are currently being revised through various various groups, but which I'm on one of those for the math standards. So my hope is that we can get some of these elements included in that process, but we will see how that goes. So, all right. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that, because not every state has their own standards. There are quite a few states that are utilizing Common Core standards. So that's good to know. I haven't had a chance to look at those curriculum elements, but I'd like to look at those at some point. So
Yep.
As you can see, one of the things I'd like to point out on this, I know you may have already read it, but social and emotional learning is a priority, can be a priority, and that's something that you really need to. It's especially in this time, we're at a time where we can really, my hope is that we can really make some major changes, and that they'll stay within our educational structure, and that we'll have more SEL components within our not only our educational system, but the way that they operate within our community, within our organizations, and how all those community groups work together within the school. Let's see. There we go. As I continue on, students, they're really challenged through a lot of these areas, so ecological, political, economic, and social lenses. One of the things that I like to see that I'm within this process, students are taught to think in terms of a systems thinking rather than compartmental thinking. And that's the biggest challenge, I think, is the basic system or basic design thinking behind place-based education and what we currently utilize within our educational model. For instance, the way that we divide up our subjects, whereas they're not fully understood and utilized in the real world in that divided up process. But that's how our students are told that's how learning is dissected and utilized in a different way. And so I think because of that, because our students have where they're told or they're taught in a different way, then it's hard for them to take that and move from that perspective into the real world. And I can tell you from my experience, I just going through the school district, it was very difficult for me to understand the reasoning for mathematics, the reasoning for everything, and why it was all divided up. And students I always hear it, I still hear it to this day. Why do we have to do this? Why, one of the good things of my job, if the young lady that's usually here, if she say, for instance, we have a few students that miss the bus. Well, one of our services we provide, we'll go pick up those students if they need to get a ride to school. Just for whatever reason, some things happen. And so I had a chance to go pick up a couple of young ladies the other day, and I was just asking them questions, and I asked them, well, I said, which school do you go to? And the youngest one told me which school she went to. And then we went to that school. Well, I asked her, I said, do you go to East Elementary? She said, yes. And when we got there, she stopped and she looked around, and her older sister said, go on in. She said, this isn't my school. And so we realized she didn't realize what the name of her school was, but she also, as they were sharing, neither one of them really liked school. And I was asking them, I was trying to get them to give me a little bit more detail on why, which I kind of understood. I know why, but I just wanted to hear their perspective. And it just makes me, I really definitely want to see this increased in our school, in all schools, especially schools that serve our Native American students, because we definitely need it. I feel strongly about it, and I know others are as well. So I'm just real quick, I want to go into what this will look like for us in terms of, I could go next gen learning. That's a whole different concept in itself, and I won't go into a whole lot of, in very, very detail, but it really talks about what I was just touching on about systems orientation, and really focusing on the needs of the learner, and really focusing on their overall what's the word I'm trying to think, just everything that they need in order to be successful. And I'm grateful that I see that one of the things that I was going to talk about, one of the aspects in terms of next gen learning and how we're moving towards that, in my perspective, we currently have a program here at Anadarko called Communities in Schools. And one of our site coordinators is on this call with us. She's brand new. She's our high school site coordinator. But the Communities in Schools model is a model to me that is geared it merges very well with the model of place-based education with next gen learning, and looking at the whole student and providing resources to the student and connecting the community with the student and vice versa. And so we're really starting to see emerging patterns within our students through the implementation of this model, in conjunction with some of the elements of place-based education, to where some of our students now they're outperforming our other students in other race categories. And so we're just, like I said, we're emerging in this area. And I'm really excited to see how this continues, and how that some of the early elements that we're talking about, how those play out.
Hey, can I interrupt you just for a second there,
Sure.
Dave? I just want to make sure that people understand what place-based education is and place-based learning. It provides Native American peoples a place-based instruction by using things in their own community. For example, a place-based approach will immerse students into like their local heritage, their culture, their language, their opportunities, and their experiences. And it aligns with your community, your life, your culture, and your practices in that community. When I say it aligns with the Common Core, for example, you could say, if you're teaching Native American history, you could talk about the real facts, broken treaties, citizenship, the Indian Removal Act. When we're talking about technology and science, you could throw in STEM. When you're talking about teaching, you could throw in storytelling, because it is, there has been studies out there that Native Americans learn best through storytelling. So health, you could use native foods, medicines that we use, and so forth. So I just want to make sure that they understood what exactly it was meant by place-based education.
Thank you. That's actually, you just touched on this next slide, actually. If you
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. If you look at it, you'll see the student there, and you see the local perspective going out in concentric circles all the way out to the classroom, schools, communities, regions, and the world. And that's, when, you hear a lot of these concepts of social emotional learning, you hear cultural relevancy, culture-based curriculum, you hear all of these elements, but there's always a focus just primarily on our students or our own culture. But what I see as a very key thing for our students to learn is they understand that local context. They understand the local stories. They hear the stories from the elders. And that's one of the things that we try to do as much as we can. We haven't been able to do it as much this year, but in the past, and as we get past all of this, we will continue to do that, where we bring our elders in and have them sit with our students. We still have been able to do some through virtual means, but it's still not the same to me. It's not the same as being able to sit there and they can see this elder and be able to understand and listen to the stories. For instance, here we have elders that have come in and told stories about our community from years past, and stories about the Tonkawa Hills massacre that took place here in Anadarko years ago and what that all entailed. And so when we start having more of those elements in place, because, for me, I take for granted what I know. I really do. When you really get in there and you begin to look at what all of our students, some of their life experiences, and what they were not allowed to learn, what's missing out of their mindset, then you really need to, you come to the understanding that this is it's a vital thing that we need. We definitely need to have that. But because as they have that, as we have that I guess you could call it the identity, but as they have that context that they need, then they're able to really go out and expand into those outer realms and begin to appreciate and understand not only our cultures, but all global cultures all across the world, and be able to navigate and move through those. So I'm gonna kind of skip over these because I think I don't want to run us over in too long, but these are some of the questions that when we start looking at this in terms of, and you can really look at these in terms of, not when I say that term there, that how effective are your PLCs? Those are basically learning communities, professional learning communities, and you can have that whether you're in an educational setting, health setting, no matter what. So how, what is that like? What does that look like for your staff members as you're looking into, whether it's the context of a school district or a tribal organization or a health organization? What does that look like in terms of how effective are those learning communities in creating that sense of community, and how that reflects into how you provide services to your constituents? How does that work for you? And those are things that I really try to get people to think about. And it's not always easy, because especially if you're, I think everyone here, because this is our focus, or I don't know who all is or is not a member of an indigenous nation here, but sometimes people, as you all know, people are not very open to, if they're not from an indigenous culture or an indigenous group, they're not very open to this at times. And that's some of the things that we run up against in our community. Some people are very open, and some people don't see the need for it. They think we should just all function on this educational model, that every kid is basically a widget in a factory. Basically, you start in pre-K and you should just function all the way up and get what you need. And you're basically like an assembly line. And I've come to realize that the educational system and our students don't necessarily match up with that. They don't match up with that assembly line model. And so as a result, that's why I think we really definitely have to have a need for the SEL supports and all of the things that go into that. Let's see. Let's move on, because I think I've talked enough about that part, about those professional questions, and we can go back. But, a lot of times people look at this place-based education as something new, but it's not. It's something that has been here forever, from prior to us moving into the industrial age and the model that we currently have that I've been talking about. This was our approach. Our tribal communities had this approach. Even our local, as we had to move into the current structure of even the local schoolhouses, they had that structure, and that support was there. The project-based, the problem-based, deeper learning, experiential learning, all of those elements were there. So it's not necessarily a new concept, but sometimes it's just something that has been there all along, but we've just forgotten about it. I'll just stop or just leave that here for a minute and let you read through that and stop and see. Does anyone have a thought or a question while you're looking at that? Because that's a lot. That's a whole paragraph there. But I felt like that was important to put into a slide because it's really important. There's a lot in that. There isn't a one size fits all for every student. We definitely need to have differentiation. We need to have all the elements in place that can help every individual student on their own path. And whatever that means, if that means extensive SEL supports, if that means helping them understand, in providing enrichment for them and helping them with STEM opportunities, that's what they need. And so that's where, I think that's one of our biggest challenges, is to overcome that one size fits all model and to really get to the point where we are providing everything for every student that they really need. But there's so many pieces to that in terms of how do you reach that? What do you need to do in order to make that happen? And one of the things that as I was mentioning earlier, I think that CIS, that communities and schools model, is one way that we can reach that. It may not be the only way, but it is one way that I think is helping us, because those site coordinators that we have are out there helping our students with their just anything that they need. They're out there, they help the family. If the family has had issues with electricity, their utilities have been cut off, they work with them to find some resources. We receive donations just in the latter part of January, first part of February. We received around $63,000 worth of donations from an organization here in Oklahoma City, in terms of clothing and food that we were able to provide to our students here and our families here. And it's really gratifying to be able to help them in that way. That's not a common way that you see in most educational settings. And it also connects us with community organizations. I'm glad like I said earlier, I see several people here from this community that are really key partners for us, for our school. They serve as key partners in all areas in terms of not just academic support, but suicide prevention, all sorts of, they provide so many things. And so it's really important that we have those areas there. And so this will be a final thought, basically, is a changing world requires changing the paradigm of education to one where place is relevant again. And that it's really, to me, to me, it's interesting, and I'm glad that something that, as we're moving into this new age or new time of trying to learn how to navigate through the post-pandemic world, that we can look back and really see that something that was here all along can really help us and move us forward. And help our students address the challenges that they're facing and address all of the, the risk factors that they have in their lives, and just continue to build community, because without that, our schools for so long have existed in a vacuum or a silo, and we have to move past that. We have to move past working in a silo. We have to all work together, share resources, and I'm proud to say that we're doing that here in our area, in our district. We still have a long way to go, but I can say that we're making strides, and we're trying to improve what we're doing. And as I said earlier, that's a constant battle, because you take ground or you make progress in one area, and then it kind of slides back in another area. So it's a constant juggling process of trying to make sure that everything is flowing, everything is progressing, so that our students are getting what they need.
One thing, David, that we're working on is having like a forum or like a collaboration for school personnel, teachers, and then school support services in Native communities. They have them already implemented in public schools. But one of the things that I've noticed is we need to come together as Native communities and share ideas and best practices and curriculums and projects with each other, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So we are trying to come up with a online format, whereas we can all do that and share these ideas and come together like that. So
I think that's the high. We definitely need that, because that's one. We have our conversations, myself and staff members here. We talk about the need for this, for place-based education, and the curriculum is limited. I had no clue that Brenda had that. So with that networking, that process opening up and increasing, that's what I think is a definite plus for us if we can do that.
And just like you said, that's exactly right. We don't have like a way to communicate within each tribe on what resources we have available to each other. So we're kind of like out there standing alone and doing it alone. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So instead of collaborating with each other. Yep.
Sounds good. So if anyone is interested, this last slide is basically just I basically just gave you a little overview, but there's so much more to it. And I knew I couldn't really go into a whole lot of detail into what this would look like. And I wasn't sure exactly the audience either. I wasn't sure at all educators primarily, or if there would be health based individuals. So I think essentially this can be utilized in different arenas. So, because ultimately what you're seeing here is what it develops. You're going to have kids, students, young people, and eventually adults that they'll be empowered to be able to, learn, to think critically, to look, not just soak in information. That's what I hear a lot of people think, that students are just supposed to be empty vessels that the content's poured into them. Well, that's really not really fully how it's supposed to be. They're supposed to be partners in education. They're supposed to be engaged in education and working with the teachers, not someone that's just, it shouldn't be a one-way street. There should be learning in both directions, and it should be a very complex process. And there should be more, it shouldn't just be broken down into categories of math and English, but there should be a whole system process of understanding how that looks. And so that's the whole purpose of it. If anyone is interested, feel free to contact me. I have information. It's not my information, but it's free. It's out there on the internet, and I'm definitely willing to share it with you. I have, I wanted to go more into detail on how I came to this current place or this perspective that I have. It came through working with our counselors, working with our, looking at trying to provide support, looking at trauma, looking at what we can do for our students. In recent years, I started meeting with all of our site counselors at every site. We had 7, now we have 5, but because we only have 5 sites, but we used to have seven counselors, and we were looking for resources on, what can we do? I had the privilege of attending a conference, and I heard Dr. Daryl Tonemaugh, and I heard his presentation on trauma and epigenetic research, and it just got me moving. I have a lot of that research that I've started going into and looking at, but it's helped us to shape our district in trying to increase or modify the supports that we can provide to our students. And a lot of that is through our partners. Some of them, like I mentioned, are here today, and they've helped us a great deal with individual students or in little small group settings, providing resources to our students. And but eventually, this is where, place-based education, this is where I want us to go with in greater implementation in the coming years. It may take a long time. We may not see it until I have to retire, but at least we'll be moving forward with it and getting closer to that. Let's see. Okay. I think I'll stop sharing this for now, and we can start if you have any further questions or anything, we can continue to talk more about it.
Does anybody have any questions for David at this time?
I think they're all asleep. Like I said, as I was talking about this quick start guide, there are 3 guides that I found there, that are a lot of the graphics that you see in the slides are from this organization that they do so much. There's so many things, so many resources that they provide. It's just amazing how much that I've been able to utilize from them. Let me pull up some of the information I have.
I'm seeing some comments in the chat that place-based education is a new concept for some people. Do you have any advice for like a good first step, just kind of getting your feet wet if you're not familiar?
Sure. That's what I was pulling up right now. I'm going to share my screen again.
And we will be putting more information about place-based education out as well very soon. Like I was saying before, one of our consultants actually has a curriculum specifically on place-based education. It is a great learning tool when you're working with Native Americans. It absolutely is. And what it is just taking your community resources to learn from. So not only are you taking your community, learning about your community, but you're taking that knowledge and going outside of that community.
Definitely.
But it's a very good, just, if I were an educator again today, I would be pushing this place-based education for Native peoples. Absolutely.
Can you see? I think I'm sharing.
Yes,
right?
got it.
You can see the guide, and I think I don't know if it may be too large to put into the chat, but I can send that.
Can you get the link out, or if you could just send it with us, we could send it to everybody after the session today?
I can,
Put it in
yes.
there. Okay, that'd be great.
There are actually 2 other guidebooks as well. This is just, there's a teacher-based guidebook, and this is just a quick start guide. And they also provide infographic type things as well.
Yep.
That
And
gives you
we could,
visuals. Mhm.
we could actually provide TA training on that if there are schools interested in learning more about that. We have a consultant, like I said, that has written a curriculum that could go into a school via Zoom and teach about the place-based education. So,
Yes, definitely.
yeah, David, if you could share that information with us, that would be wonderful.
I will. Okay.
Can you drop that link in the chat, David? Would that be okay?
I believe so. These are downloaded documents that I've already pulled off, so I don't have the link.
Just send them
readily
to me when
available.
you get a chance, and then when we
Yeah.
send the PowerPoint over to our audience, we'll include that for them. Would that be okay?
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, I can definitely do that.
great. Any other questions? I don't think there's any cost to the program, not the one I'm speaking of anyway. So,
Mm-mm. Yeah, it's something that there could be cost if depends on what you would want to do with it, but it can be implemented and with it's just a matter of changing your mindset, I think, mostly.
yep.
Because
And it could be cost if you brought a trainer in, but our consultant would not charge, we pay for it, so.
right.
So do we have any other questions about today's session? Because if there isn't any other questions about today's session, I do have a couple of questions for everybody that's on here today. Anything anybody wants to add, want to comment on? David, you did a great job. Great information. More
Thank you.
information will be coming. We have these now till 3:30, so we have a few more, we have 30 more minutes, 25 more minutes to discuss.
Mhm.
And I wanted to, if you don't mind, discuss last session. Is that okay with you, David?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Was there anybody, you could just raise your hand, or anybody that's on the call today that was here last session? If you know how to wave or raise your hand, can you please do so, or give me a thumbs up? Anybody that was on last sessions that would like to discuss last session? I do want to bring one thing up. I thought it was a very good conversation, a very much needed response, or much needed conversation to have. One of the conversations was leading to working with non-natives working in Native communities. I've been receiving a lot of requests from school communities wanting me to go in and talk to them about how to work with Native communities. And then the other thing that was brought up is non-natives working in Native communities. And I think we had a very good discussion. I did get a call from one of our listeners, and she's been with us for a very long time. Catherine, are you on the call today?
Yes, I am, Teresa.
I'm putting you on the spot. Sorry about that. Catherine's been with us since the beginning, listening to our sessions. And I talked to her just briefly the other day. I didn't get to talk to her very long, but I did speak with her. And She talked about how, well, the conversation went, how she very much appreciated it. However, she didn't feel comfortable speaking up as a non-native. And I don't want anybody here not feeling comfortable speaking up, no matter what your color is, because that's what we are here for. Realistically, the truth be told, yes, we want to support natives and native communities. Yes, we want to support, native teachers and native administrators, but I wholeheartedly support native people in native communities doing the right thing. So I appreciate everything that you do, Catherine. I just wanted to bring that out. So, and you've been on every one of our sessions, and I definitely appreciate that. Does anybody else have any other comments or any suggestions or anything about what we talked about last week? Would you like to hear more discussion about last week's topic?
Out of curiosity, was it recorded? Because I wasn't here, but I'd be interested in listening to the conversation.
Yes, Sierra, it was recorded, and Larry was excellent speaker. We did get down and got into some very deep conversations that I think was very much needed. I just want to make sure that we were all comfortable. I don't want anybody thinking that they are unwanted when you're working with Native communities. And that was my fear. And when I talked with Catherine, she didn't feel comfortable speaking up, even though she wanted to. And I don't want anybody thinking that they shouldn't speak up. So yes, you will be getting a copy of that. It'll be on our YouTube channel and on our on our website. So it was a very good conversation. I think it went very well. What I've come to realize is that a lot of people are asking for how to work effectively in Native communities when you're non-Native. That is what I'm hearing. I'm getting a lot of requests to do trainings on this. It's going to be difficult because not every Native community is the same. Every one of us is different. Every one of us have different beliefs, but there are things that can be done for you to establish better relationships with your parents, your teachers, your even your students. If you reach their heart, then you've reached their mind. Being Native myself, being a school principal and working in a Native American school, I've seen it firsthand what the struggles are with the parents and the students. I've also seen firsthand some very wonderful non-Native teachers, and the opposite. I've seen, Native teachers that weren't very good for our students. And the way I look at it is, if you are there for the right reasons and you're doing good by our students, then you're in the right place. But not everybody is, unfortunately, there for that reason. But I have been asked, people that are there for the right reasons, they do want to make that connection with Native peoples. And I can tell you, the truth is we do have our guard up. Schools were not made for Native Americans. There's a lot to that maybe a lot of non-Native teachers and personnel don't understand. And we definitely want to give them that piece that may be missing so that the communication can improve. So, and that's kind of where it went, I think, last week. Does anybody else? Go ahead, Sarah.
I'll be watching for those, because in our community, that's definitely something that's an opportunity for growth in our community. So, and part of my job is implementing systems that are more trauma responsive, culturally responsive, restorative, and equitable. And so I feel like there's just a lot of learning that I can take from that to apply to this, and even just for my own personal life, because I'm currently in the process of enrollment with my tribe in Southern Oregon, but I look white, so just also navigating that dynamic as well. So
yes, that's another issue we have here is blue-eyed, blonde hair natives and how they may be treated by their own communities. when all of our natives, we look different, even though we're all native. But just to let you know, I've gotten at least 4 requests now wanting me to go. I think I'm going to be going in a couple of weeks to Mesa City Schools in Arizona and speaking with their teachers on this exact topic. So if you do want to, for me to go into your community via Zoom for right now and speak on this, I'll be glad to. And the piece does start with the historical trauma piece, even though that's not where we end it. We ended on resilience. But I think it's very important that our educators do know and understand that that is a real thing. So if you're interested in that, just send me an email and we can get that set up. Can you read what's in the chat there? I can't, Julia.
Yeah, someone shared, when a Native educator is not available for whatever reason, the best way to support the youth and families is to welcome, encourage, and educate a non-Native educator. In some of our communities, the majority of educators aren't Native, so we have to find the best ways to support the kids in those schools too.
Absolutely.
It's from Rachel.
Thank you, Rachel. And that is the reality. In a lot of Native communities, the majority of the teachers and administrators are non-Native. Are there anything else we want to talk about that, or do we want to move on to something else? Because I do have another question for you as well. Another thing that I do want to, that Sierra just brought to my attention, there is a need for Native communities to come together. We need to stop judging each other. We need to stop the hierarchy in our own communities, and realize that we are equal. And when I say equal, I mean women and men. I mean educators and non-educators. I mean tribal council members and non-tribal council members. I see all the time where we are tearing up our own people, putting down our own people, gossiping about our own people. And that is one thing that, you know, it breaks my heart to see. And in every Native nation I've worked in, for some reason, I see it. And I would like to do something. I'm not sure exactly what I want to do, but I would like to be able to do something whereas we could work on that, to be better people and to be better community members so that we could start lifting each other up. Because, you know, until we start doing that, how are we going to get anywhere? You know, it's why would we want one of our community members down instead of motivating them to be the best that they can be? Sometimes I feel like we're our own worst enemies at times. You know, I've heard the notion numerous times said to me, the worst thing you could be is an educated Native woman. You know, and that's just, it's just not a good feeling. And it's not something we want, and it's not something we want for our children to grow up believing. So if anybody wants to be part of that, reach out to me. What I'm looking for is maybe a forum to speak on things like that. Another thing that I've noticed is the racism within own Native communities from what you look like, because we do have some blonde hair or brown hair or blue-eyed natives that I know are being bullied by other natives. I have also seen, working as a school principal, whereas if you're not enrolled, you're not good enough. And can you imagine, you know, you're a Native American, but you're not enrolled, so you're not accepted by the non-natives or the white man. You're not accepted by your own kind because you're not actually enrolled. So then who are you? And what that does on a child's psyche. So I definitely want to do something with that as well. I'm looking for a panel discussion. So if that interests you, please reach out to me and let me know. So David, I could already tell you want to be part of that as well. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Don't forget the brown skin. Yep. Yep. The dark brown skin, the light brown skin, the blue eyes. Yep. Absolutely. So, and that's just something I wish, and I don't want to say this to insult anybody, but my belief is, you know, non-natives or Caucasians They lift each other up. They hire each other. They give each other raises. Why aren't we doing the same for our people? You know? So. Fiona, does that mean you want to be part of that as well? Because we could definitely reach out to you. So we may be having that even in a couple of weeks coming up. So any other things that you guys would like to talk about in the upcoming workshops, sessions? We could do talking circles, whatever you guys want. Any topics that come to mind that you guys want to hear about? SEL? Okay.
Catherine, could I ask you what you mean by believe of people with disabilities, future goals, where to work, live, and more? What that topic means? You can either put it in the chat, or if you can unmute, that's just fine too.
I come with a voice of disabilities, voice with mental health, and also disabilities and IDD, intellectual and developmental disabilities. And just to have a future, a hope of employment and life situations, where to live, those kind of things. It just seems like there is so much changing in that arena that I just want to keep it brought up, not to forget that there are some people that need extreme support to succeed in some situations, and others need a little support. But it's just, we're all interdependent and we all need different levels of support. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, like the wide spectrum of disability and how to meet students where they're at. Thanks for bringing that up.
And reaching as far as you can. I'm sorry, what was that?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say this is my first time joining in, and I really appreciate the conversation, the presentation, and just hearing the topics. But one thing I think about for our community here in the Central Valley is we're an urban Indian health center, and we do a lot with education, and it's still pretty new to us. But working with the districts, I know we're talking here about educators and being able to provide that for Native students. But like one of the challenges that we keep running against is our communities are really like an aggregated population where they're just completely overlooked. Like Native students are completely overlooked or underrepresented, misrepresented. And the schools right now, I'm working with our equity and access at one of our largest districts, but it just seems that they're getting the administration on board to really change policies that can support Native students. Like one thing in particular that we're seeing is identifying, there's, like you're saying, the enrollment in tribal documentation is required to benefit from some of the services. And in us being an urban population, there's a large portion who are disconnected from their tribal communities, and they're just being kind of swept away and not really being recognized as Native students and being served in the capacity they should. So that's just one concern I have. I don't know if this is the space for that, but I just wanted to share that.
Yep, and I appreciate that very much. And are you talking about public schools? Are you talking about tribally controlled schools, BIE schools?
No, these are public schools here in California. Yeah.
Yeah, and are these public schools integrating any of the Native culture into the schools?
No, not at all. And I think that's the challenge, is because it's so easy for them to say that they don't have a large population, and that's kind of been kind of been the story, and it's been hit and miss. I have, a handful of teachers who are on board now and really working towards an ethnic studies program, which they started, and, I'm getting more incorporated with that. But it's like these siloed efforts that, all of these teachers too have hit a wall and are just, doing what they can on their end. But it's really about having the larger conversation to be at the table. And that's kind of, for me, I'm just, listening in to hear about ideas and hear what other people are doing and hopefully bringing it back to our community and working and building on that. So.
Yeah, I think you brought up a great topic, Ruben. I've worked with public schools that have not integrated any Native American culture into their school systems, and it is a necessity. If you are working with Native Americans, in order for them to be feel part, and feel at home, you have to have some type of culture integrated into your programming. I've also seen schools that are doing very well at doing that. They even have like cultural teachers or cultural programming instructors. Even here where I live, half of the native goes to the town school, half of the natives here that are Meskwaki go to the Meskwaki school, because the town school has done a great job in integrating Native Americans into their curriculum, into their just everything. They have a club specifically for Native Americans. They have powwows. So the children are feeling more comfortable. They're fitting in. They feel like, yes, this is my safe space because of these efforts. But if you don't have these efforts, statistics will show you, just like when someone goes to college and they leave their hometown where they have their family, their culture, and then go off to college in a big city, they're doomed to fail because they don't have that type of support. So Ruben, keep pushing, and I'll be glad to help you in any way I can, but keep pushing for that. It's a need.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else? We've got a few more minutes. You're exactly right, Cheryl. One student is a reason to incorporate Native culture. Absolutely. All right, guys, you have my email address. You have our GIPRA at the end of this session. Please fill it out. If you have anything, come up with anything that you would like us to discuss or have any trainings that you would like us to provide, let us know. That's what we are here for. We don't just do this session bi-monthly. We do a lot more than this. We have a lot of initiatives going on. David, would you like to talk a little bit about your initiative that you're doing since you're on here?
Sure. Yes, we're just getting started in the concept of working on, it's primarily going to be an after-school based project. We're looking apps of some type, something that will engage students and help them with just various elements of storytelling, after school, reading a book, games, enrichment of any type. So, if any of, I don't know if any of you have any information or you have ideas, feel free to share with us and let us know, if there are some things that you'd like to see or some things that would be helpful to your students in your area, just let me know.
Yeah, because we really want this to be for any tribal nation to adapt to. So if you have traditional games, please let us know, because that's what we really want to get back to, is like those traditional games that our ancestors played or our parents or grandparents played. Also any type of storytelling, and then helping them make anything that is easy to make that we could show them. We're also putting in a character education piece into that, where they learn bravery, responsibility, wisdom, caring, sharing, things like that. So we're very excited about that. So, and then David is also part of a mental health curriculum that we are currently doing now that I am very excited about, and it's going to be specifically for American Indians and Alaska Natives. And then we are going to be doing a teaching curriculum for American Indians and Alaska Natives. So I am very excited about those projects. Plus, much more coming out this year. So it's gonna be great. All right, guys, we're at the top of the hour. I thank you for being here today. I hope you enjoyed it. We will be back on Friday. Julia, help me.
The 26th, March 26th.
Friday, the 26th. Okay, 2:00 p.m. Central Time. Again, we are now on an hour and a half. Yep. So hope to see you there. Have a great Thursday. I hope you have beautiful weather where you're at, and we will see you next time. Okay, guys?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, David. I appreciate that. Julie, do you know how to copy the notes from the chat? You got it. Okay, so we're good to go then? All right, great, guys. Thank you. Have a great day. Thanks, David. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Okay.
Have a good day.
You too.